convinced them to reload all of them into the truck and then unload them in Chicago. Then again, the bulls were already in Chicago. She wished she hadn't come on this trip alone. If she'd brought some followers, she could just kidnap Cain and take her to Kansas City to face the maidens. Maybe she'd do that. Call tonight and get a few more here to help her. She knew she couldn't take Cain on her own. 3 days later, Aislinn Cain ordered Mexican for lunch delivery. Afterward, they watched her leave and head to the coffee shop she visited several times a week. One of the others followed Cain to the coffee shop while she and Felix broke into her apartment. In the fridge, she found a container that held the makings for fajitas, sprinkled GHB in it, and stirred it up. They'd come back tonight and take her when she was unconscious. Now, all they needed was to get a moving van or lock Cain in a trunk or something and take her back to Kansas City. In less than a week, she'd be able to see the terror on Cain's face as she faced being locked in an Iron Maiden. She'd have the satisfaction of listening to the bitch scream in agony as she died. Their rented apartment was across the street and 1 floor above Aislinn's. They could look into her windows because they had mussed some of the blinds while inside drugging her leftovers. She watched her eat 2 fajitas and waited 3 hours. However, she had no reaction. 5 hours after Cain ate the leftovers, she went to bed. She sent Felix and Ryder across the street to get into her apartment. She watched them enter the living room, Cain appearing in the living room shortly after, wide awake. She pitched something at them. They spooked and ran. They ran straight across the street and entered the apartment. They were wearing steak, onions, and green peppers. She gaped at them. She had seen Cain make the fajitas herself. There was no way she could have known that the leftovers were tampered with. They would have to leave now. They needed to be out of Washington before the sun came up. Now she could see Cain on her phone, probably calling the police. Jessica was surprised she hadn't given chase, but maybe she had been too tired for that. She didn't know. She did know they had to clear out of the apartment immediately. Chapter 1. People love a good horror story, especially when it is real. I have a PhD in history. I wrote my thesis on the evolution of torture as a crime deterrent in the Middle Ages. I didn't set out to write that as my thesis, but like everything else, a thesis evolves. It went over well, and I am currently turning it into a book for the layman. My name is Aislinn Cain, and my life is a horror story. Currently, I live in Washington State. I attended the University of Washington for grad school and haven't returned to my roots yet. Those are firmly planted in the Midwest, Missouri to be exact, and to be more exact, Columbia, Missouri, home of the Tigers, Shakespeare's Pizza, and the Sub Shop. I do intend to return. My studio apartment is too small, and there are way too many people in Seattle for my taste. I don't go out much, but then I never really have. I don't like crowds. I don't like being forced to meet new people. Physically speaking, I'm healthy as a horse. I am 5 foot 3 inches tall and weigh 130 pounds. I have a kickboxing rig set up in the studio apartment, as well as a tread climber. I work out for an hour every day. Mentally, I'm slightly broken. Some years ago, I was diagnosed with a pesky personality disorder that lies somewhere in my fractured psyche. They call it atypical antisocial personality disorder with sociopathic tendencies. I lack the ability to feel empathy or sympathy. I am hard to get angry, but once there, it is an almost uncontrollable rage. I ignore most of what society considers reasonable, replacing it instead with a set of morals and values that I can understand. One of the hallmarks of sociopathic and psychopathic personalities is a lack of moral understanding. But my mental condition is something to be understood later, when everything has been explained. To try to understand it now would be like trying to do a jigsaw puzzle without